Welcome back after this short break. And now, without any further ado, I want to leave you to a great interview about disability, visibility, and impact. I will see you after it.
Hi, Mino. How are you today?
Good morning, Monica. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you very much. We are just about to celebrate the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. So I can't wait. It's coming tomorrow. I'd like thank first of all, I'd like to thank you for spending some time with me, having a very important conversation, in my opinion, about visibility of people with disabilities. And if you don't mind, I will just start with some kind of a background, because I think it's very important for our audience to understand that there is an estimated 1 billion people with disabilities in the world, and they face many barriers to inclusion in many key aspects of society, if we can say. As a result, people with disabilities don't enjoy access to society on equal basis with others, which includes areas of, for example, transportation, employment, education, as well as social and political participation, of course. The right to participate in public lives is essential uh, in order to create stable democratic society. Active citizenship can reduce inequalities, and we also are going to refer as well to organizations interested in talent retention, especially among employees with disabilities. And what is the most important about International Day of Persons with Disabilities is that it's giving a great opportunity for them to speak up, be present, be visible to a wider audience. And this is actually the focus of our conversation today. Why is it so important? And I'd like to ask you, Mino, to share with us some bits and pieces of your personal journey. What led you to your empowerment and visibility, as you are an extremely successful manager, a leader, an activist, a wonderful person, first of all, being a true walking role model in terms of disability inclusion. So would you mind just sharing your personal story, how it was for you to become so visible and powerful?
Thank you so much, Monica, for firstly inviting me here. It's such a pleasure. I mean, for me, you are my role model. So it seems like I am talking to my role model who has put herself out there, and everyone looks up to you. So uh, I feel very honored and privileged to be interviewed by you and having this conversation with you today. So, briefly, about my journey, it was not always like this. When I grew up in a very small town. I was the only child with disability in the family. When I went to school, I realized I was the only child with disability in school. I struggled throughout my schooling, primarily because I sought, when, these are all uh, things that I can see in retrospect. I asked for visibility, I asked for representation, but it was not termed as representation at that time or not termed as visibility at that time. It was seen, I was asking for accommodations. I could be visible so that I could participate equally. But did I get those accommodations when I was growing up in my school or in my college? No, I didn't. It was seen as if I'm trying to get advantage of my disability. So instead of me trying to adapt to the system which is not ready to accept me, I had to adapt. I had to uh, quote unquote be differently abled, go and walk up to the fourth floor of the class, which did not have a lift. The bus would pick me up from some distance, and my parents were my first advocates who wrote to the principal, to the school, that our daughter cannot walk. She needs assistance with her carrying her bag. It's so heavy. Can you please allow the bus to pick her up right outside home? There's such a wide road. We are not asking for anything else, but just a little detour so that she's she doesn't waste her energies, the energies that she could conserve to be more productive, to be on an equal footing with others. So it was not like that when I grew up. And this way, what happened was that I internalized my invisibility. And constantly my struggle was, how do I fit in? How do I look like everyone else? How do I not stand out in the crowd?
So
So when I
actually,
was,
on the
yeah,
contrary, you were trying to rather be like anyone else in the group, right?
yes,
Not being different was actually
yes,
something that we were dreaming about. Your story
correct.
resonates with me so much because exactly that's how it was in my case as well. Every step in my education, then career, had to be like some obstacles had to be overcome, and people had to be involved in order to support me this or other way.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
and that's why I was always put somewhere there on a plate that was visible, that I'm not standard and my needs are not standard. Please tell us
Yeah.
how it was later when you were growing up a little bit, like your
Yeah.
university. Did you notice any
So,
change then?
the big change in my life came when I met a lot of other people with disabilities. I met disability rights activists who gave me the confidence and a safe space to be myself. It was an environment for the first time that I came across in which I was not being judged. Um, I could see many more role models like myself, and that gave me the confidence that, and they gave me this whole theory about nothing about us without us. The barriers that we are facing, the obstacles that we come across on a day-to-day basis is because we are a minority that continues to remain invisible, unheard, unseen. And we are unheard, unseen, invisible because there are so many obstacles around us. There are so many barriers in the environment that keep us out. So we need to start demanding our own visibility. And no one else will speak for us because no one else has a lived experience that we have. And we have the same right as everyone else to be able to participate, to lead a life of dignity, and have access to everything that everyone else has access to, whether it's education, whether it's employment, whether it is having access to a family life, to having access to community spaces, to transportation, to infrastructure, everything. And they said that no one else will talk about us. Professionals will talk about rehabilitation. Parents will, yes, parents will talk about us. They will, but beyond a point, um, we have to come out of the shadows of our parents and we have to be our own selves. So I think that is what changed when I met disability rights activists. I started reading more about it. I started meeting more people. I started listening to more about uh, my community. Because all these years, I was only listening to the non disabled world, which was telling me what I should be doing, but it was not telling me that the barriers were there because they had created those barriers from centuries and they were not questioning anything.
Absolutely. Yeah. I discovered my disability, like the fact that I have some limitations at the age of 16. When I was a child, the only child with a disability in my surrounding, I was not realizing that actually there is a community. I didn't feel like belonging to the
Yeah.
to the environment where without disabilities, so fully abled people. And I was not feeling part of the disabled community because my disability were like some motoric limitations that on a daily basis where I had to cope with, but overall I didn't feel disabled, right? So this feeling and belonging, I think it's extremely important to become brave enough to say, hey, I'm here, uh, and I am who I am, and bringing my whole self to the group of people that I'm meeting and I'm interacting with. And Minu, if you were to say something to employers and generally companies willing to attract people with disabilities, what would you say? How should organizations include people with disabilities? What would be like top three recommendations from you for the companies?
Um, Having worked in this space for more than a decade, um, actually more than 3 decades now. It's almost 3 decades. I'm that old. So I can speak with confidence that what works and what doesn't work. But three things that have worked is having people with disabilities in your leadership. Unless you have people
Visible,
with disability, yeah,
visible.
visible, invisible disabilities, but they need to be visible. They need to be walking the talk because they are the ones who are connected with the community and who will get and attract more talent with disability. So
Mm.
I think that is number one. It flows from the top. It does not flow from bottom. So the message from the top leadership has to be there that we are inclusive. We are inclusive of all diversities, including people with disability. You have to make your statement around disability more visible, more obvious, uh, so that people believe that you are walking the talk, and you're walking in that journey with them. It's not that any company becomes perfect overnight because disability is very diverse. It's not a homogeneous group. It is very heterogeneous. So each disability is very different. There will be challenges on the way, but I am ready to put myself out there and walk with you and work with you to make sure that you feel included. You are part of us and you bring your whole self to work. And I think third thing is which is most important is having policies. Unless you commit to making your policy and your environment inclusive, you are not empowering people. Then people are lost in a maze. They are dependent on the goodwill or the mercy or the charity of the managers. And that is why it is important that you have very clear policies, which should adapt and keep changing with changing times and changing technology and changing requirements of people. But make that statement, make those very conscious, intentional choices of making sure that your policy environment is inclusive of people with disabilities. So these are my top three tips.
Mm. And if the company has got all these three, like the policies, the infrastructure, because they continue
Yeah,
investing and learning and trying to develop and make their
yeah,
work environment accessible, because we need to say it, and I think it's absolutely a golden message. You will never be ready in 100% as an organization to
yeah,
accommodate everyone with every type of disability, right? There will always
yeah,
be some limitations. But what's the most important is to create as many basic accessibility as possible, because this serves not only to people with disabilities, but actually everybody, because
everybody.
elderly employees, employees that are or even working long hours with tired eye need or can use some of the accommodations that initially were planned for the people with disabilities, right? So once the organization has got these basics, policies, recommendations, guidelines for managers, they continue training their staff, recruitment team, talent and development, also hiring managers, and then managers who are dealing with diverse teams. I think it's absolutely essential. I often hear this comment, are we ready? So, Mino, how to explain the companies about this readiness and the need of promoting what they already have? Because this is a fact that in every organization, there must be people with disabilities. Statistically, maybe they are not visible enough. So, what should they do as organizations, as employers?
In my experience, what has worked is having the right intention. So unless you have the intention, you will not take that first step to be ready. And in my experience, what I've also seen, peer-to-peer learning really works. So if you have peers in the industry who have gone through that journey and who have become ready, they all started somewhere. They all started from scratch and became ready over a period of time. Their models matured. So learning from peers is very critical because sometimes internally we may become echo chambers and the sound may just keep reverberating again and again. But when you hear from your peers and you see that they are doing well, it resonates. It resonates with the senior management that I want to be in that league. I want to be seen where my peers are in the industry. So that is why I want to have this intentional choice of making sure that I walk that path.
Absolutely. Minu, unfortunately, the time is flying and definitely not supporting us. So I'd like us to have some kind of a conclusion at the end for all the organizations. Also to focus not only on attracting people with disabilities, but also retaining them, providing them with right accommodations. And in my opinion, active listening to the needs of employees is the most important. Because as you said, learning from peers, having these conversations can really make a difference, can really impact and positively change the organization. I would conclude with the fact that visibility is strategic. Visibility is insistent. This is an argument for disabled people for their recognition and rights, as you mentioned, human rights. Through visibility, people with disabilities can demand to be part of the public and the society, no matter if this is external society or within the company, the community, in the organization. And visibility is imperative. This is the reason why smart companies learn how to listen better to their employees and candidates with disabilities, right? Would you like to share the last recommendations, maybe this time for young people entering their career, what they should do to find the right companies that will create for them safe space and will enable them to equally develop their career?
Yeah. Young people, when they're entering a company, I think what they should look for, this commitment, if the company has made it public, that they are inclusive and that they are an equal opportunity employer and that they do not discriminate, they provide reasonable accommodation, that they have policy of self-ID. All these things they should look for when they are entering the workplace. They should also look at if they have ERGs, business resource groups, that have people with disabilities, the ally groups, because that gives you the confidence that I will be supported, I will have a safe space when I enter this workplace, and I can be myself. What I have also observed is in a lot of companies, the employee resource groups, you have allies, but there is no representation of people with disabilities. So, how do they become more visible? So, allies also need to make sure that the charter of their ERG is not to just remain an ally, but to actively promote leadership of people with disabilities in the employee resource group. So, these would be like my very few basic tips for new joiners and for the ERGs.
Thank you very much, Mino. Of course, we could be talking about it for hours because I feel that we have just touched the top of an iceberg. But I'd like to thank you very much for our conversation. And I really enjoyed it. And I hope that the audience will find lots of hints and tips how to make their organizations better, how to be more disability smart, and how to include people with disabilities in a better way. So thank you very much. I really admire your visibility and all your achievements for the community of people with disabilities in the world, because not only in APAC, because your engagement and contribution works for all the globe. So thank you very much for this time today, Mino. It was a huge pleasure, and let's meet very soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monica. I really enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you. My pleasure.